Anyway, I gotta swing it. Swing it.
Welcome to Horror Month. You are all my maniacs now.
Welcome back! It's Horror Month! It's 2018, and we are continuing the Nightmare on Elm Street series, and we are on part 5.
A Nightmare on Elm Street, Part 5, The Dream Child.
Always gotta get that dream in there, don't they? They gotta stick that word dream in every single one, just about.
Dream Warriors, Dream Master, Dream Child.
We're the Dream Warriors. They gonna dream no more. Dream Warriors. They gonna dream no more.
So, we are on another dream here, or a nightmare. I don't know. It depends on what we think of this movie. So, part 5, I don't have any memory of going to the show to go see this, so I don't have a story this time. I know everybody's upset.
I don't really have a story for it either.
When did the actual TV series start? Do you know what year that started?
Probably 1989. It was after Nightmare 4.
Because I remember sitting and watching the TV series and being really excited that it was coming on, but at the same time I'm thinking to myself, I still remember thinking to myself, wow, I think they're kind of outdoing or overdoing Freddy, because who would want to go to the movies anymore when they could just watch him on TV? I mean, this was overload. It was one of those, Star Wars things. It was overload of Freddy, and he was everywhere. And I think by the time part 5 came out, everybody was sick of it. I mean, everybody was already done with Nightmare on Elm Street, because they had the TV series, and it had merchandise, and there was this and there and everywhere, and it's like, if they could put it into McDonald's cups or Burger King stuff, you would have seen it there. It was everywhere.
I mean, I heard a lot of people say exactly what you said there. Why would I want to go see him at the movies when I can watch him on television free? I literally heard somebody say that. But I will say this, the one thing I did find out when this movie was coming out was Robert Englund himself was actually getting tired of it. And he was getting tired of it, not because he didn't like the character or anything like that. It was just, it went from Nightmare 4 to the TV series to Nightmare 5 to the TV series to Nightmare 6. It was just rolling like a big boulder, and he couldn't stop it.
Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it!
So, the first time I saw this movie, I hated it. I thought it was terrible. I guess I didn't really get it. I guess I didn't really understand what was happening in the film. Also, I believe this is the one that Freddy looks terrible in. I think it's this one. Is it this one or the other one? I think one of them he looks like something like a Funko Pop figure or something.
This is one of them, yes.
Yeah, his makeup here just went to crap. He goes from looking amazing in part 4 to looking like he had like a skin graft or something, and it was terrible looking. He looked horrible in this movie.
Well, in this one, what they did was go back and they got David Miller from the original Nightmare on Elm Street. And he came back, and I guess because Kevin Yeager had done part 2, part 3, and part 4, and everybody had gotten used to the look that Kevin Yeager had given Freddy, I guess what he was trying to do was kind of mix his original look of Freddy with Kevin Yeager's, and it doesn't work well. It doesn't work well at all in this.
Alright, so this 5th one here, the acting improved greatly in this movie, for the most part. I think Alice was actually a lot better in this movie than she was in the previous film. And the actual characters in this film, her friends in this movie, I liked a lot better than those people that were in part 4. I didn't like any of those people. The Karate Kid people, the fitness woman, the smart girl, any of those people. Didn't like any of those. I thought they were terrible. But in this one, they're actually decent. They're good actors. They're not great, but they're good. And I liked the model, and I especially liked the comic book guy. He was probably one of my favorite characters in this movie. The only one I really wasn't crazy about was the swimmer. I don't think she was that great of an actress. But as for the characters themselves, they were actually at least interesting in this movie.
They did this in part 4, but this is also where the characters all started to take on stereotypes. Like, here's the nerd, here's this fitness person, here's, you know, the beauty person, here's the comic book nerd, here, you know, all of a sudden you had each one was having a stereotype of some kind. And yes, I agree, I love the comic book Mark, the character of Mark in here, but he was phenomenal. He was probably one of my favorite characters in this film.
He was actually trying to make sense of everything, and everybody else was like, oh, you're crazy, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, I'm going to look into this. And he was sort of like the voice of reason in this movie.
Freddy looks so comical and comic book-ish. It actually works for the scene with the comic book guy, but throughout the rest of the movie, it doesn't really work. And Freddy's just keeps spouting out the one-liners. I mean, that one was like full of it. It was like, he feels the need for speed, and don't dream and drive. Hey Dan, better buckle up. I mean, it was just like one-liner right after another. And I don't know, as far as the dream goes, I thought the dream sequence was cool. And I love the way that they actually dreamed him up again in this film, with the whole hell baby, the Freddy baby. I thought that was phenomenal.
That is something that I guess I really didn't get. I didn't really get that because, I don't know, I'm not a big fan of kids, and when you introduce Freddy and have a whole movie full of kids, I'm like, oh great, now here's Freddy with kids, you know, you gotta put kids in the Nightmare movie of course now, but I'm gonna be Freddy Krueger in this movie and I'm gonna talk like this because I'm supposed to be evil because I'm a kid.
Well, the whole idea is not just the hell baby, but it's that he's entering her unborn baby's dreams. And I love that idea. I thought that was phenomenal. I thought a lot of people actually, when this came out, I remember a lot of people were actually like, I don't know, I don't understand that. I don't get that. I loved it. I thought it was an amazing idea.
This was a good one. This was actually made sense. It actually made sense on how to bring him back because now, you know, she shut him off, but her child is dreaming, and he can use the child's dreams to enter her life again and actually use the kid's dreams while she's awake to mess up her friends. And it was a really good idea.
So once again, all the characters, they have abilities or skills or dream powers or whatever you want to call it, but they don't know it. And they don't know it because they've never been faced with this, and they're not sitting down in a room going, yeah, we can use all these powers for one another. You know, they didn't talk it out or anything. Alice couldn't even convey that to them, that, you know, you all have a set of powers that you can use. Or maybe she did and they didn't film it, or they didn't put it in the movie or something.
Well, I actually didn't mind the way he killed off the peoples in this movie either. Yeah, again, just one-liner after one-liner after one-liner, but they were pretty good deaths. I mean, the car death was goofy, but it made sense. I mean, him falling asleep and crashing into a truck full of gasoline. I guess it was a gasoline truck, and he blew up. And the model, when he's like feeding the model until she starts exploding, she starts coughing and she chokes to death and dies, which was an interesting sequence. She's like, ugh. And the mom's like, just staring at her. I mean, it was like,
Greta? Greta, dear?
And then the comic book guy, I don't know if they really could explain what happened to him, really. They said it was the building he was in was condemned, and then the building killed him, apparently.
Nothing was up to code.
But his dream sequence was cool, too, and that's when Super Freddy comes out, and it's a different actor, because it's a big old guy playing Freddy. And that was cool, because it was nice to see Freddy do something different, finally, and become something different, and not being himself for the whole movie. That was a pretty cool... Love that whole sequence.
I love the whole thing where he gets on the skateboard, and it's got the blades coming out of the back of the skateboard and everything. I absolutely love that.
You got all this really cool, creepy stuff going on, and at the very end, you know, she's sitting there with her kid, and they pull back and they show the jump rope. Really, really good ending. And then it comes on with this rap song.
Anyway, I gotta swing it.
bad placement. They should have came on with a creepy nightmare song, not anyway, I gotta swing it.
Well, I actually really enjoyed this film. I thought it was one of the better movies in the franchise because actually at this point in time, this movie went out against Jason Takes Manhattan and Halloween 5, the revenge of the return of the worst Michael Myers movie ever made. So it went out against those two films, and out of that, this was the best one. I really liked this movie better than those two. But at this time too, it was also, I think Freddy, like you said originally, it was starting to run its course. So, but I really enjoyed the movie. I really liked it. I had fun with it, and I would definitely give it a 5 out of 5.
Six months ago when I watched this film, I would have probably said this is one of my least favorites besides part 4. But after watching it recently and just kind of sitting there by myself watching with all the lights off and just kind of taking it all in, I got it. This time I actually really got the story, got what they were going for. But I'm actually going to give the movie a 5 out of 5. I think it's one of the better Nightmare on Elm Street movies.
Yeah, actually, I think so too. I think of the sequels, it's one of the better sequels. Well, we don't have any audio commentary once again, so the first extra that we have is Womb Raiders. Now, that's not Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I don't know necessarily why they call it Womb Raiders, but that's what it was named.
Now, what they actually say in this extra, I 100% agree with, was that it was not a good idea to do this in a horror film back then, or even probably now, that, here's a girl, it's all about having babies and getting pregnant, and, they're like, well, all these teenagers are going there to see Freddy. They don't want to go see some woman getting pregnant and having babies in a horror film, which I 100% agree with.
I don't know if I agree with that, but I don't think that's the reason why the movie didn't do so well. I think it was just some of it got over the top, and by this point, Freddy was just spewing out one-liners. And I think it had more to do with that than it did with Freddy having a baby or Alice having a baby and the whole Freddy baby. Because I like the whole idea. I like the whole concept of it. And then when they have John Skipp and Craig Spector come on this extra and talk about their ideas, once again, if they did have an audio commentary, I would have liked to hear them talk about it on there, because it was really interesting to hear what they had to say about the whole idea and the concept behind it.
Well, I mean, what she's saying is the audience at the time that this movie was designed for, it would be like going to see a Friday the 13th movie and Jason knocking somebody up and having a baby. I mean, it's like, I wouldn't want to see that. And I sure didn't want to see Freddy having a kid or having somebody else's kid or possessing a kid or whatever this thing, was about. And even though it did turn out good, I mean, I did like the movie. At the time it came out, I mean, they just wanted to see Freddy killing people and Freddy doing one-liners. They didn't want to see babies in a horror movie, which I completely agree with.
I actually enjoyed it a lot more than what other people did, is what I'm getting at.
So the next extra is called The Sticky Floor. Now, I found this one pretty interesting just for the fact, again, this is some behind-the-scenes talk about how they did a scene that lasts all of 3 seconds in the film. It's like right at the end of the film where Freddy's mom is trying to put Freddy back into her body, and they go down these series of doors, and doors are like breaking, like just going down, each door is breaking. This guy said that was the most miserable experience he ever had trying to film anything in his life, and it sounded like misery, like pure misery filming it, and you would never know that by watching a 3-second clip in that movie.
The way they did the doors, they were made out of candy. They were made out of sugar. I guess all the pieces fell to the floor, and they would step on the floor, and they didn't have time to go and clean everything up. So they got it all over their shoes, so wherever they went, they would stick to the floor.
And he said it was like 110 degrees, and this stuff would like gel to the bottom of their shoes. And they filmed, they said they would just spent like 110 degrees, 20-hour days filming this thing. And then when they went to go watch it, it didn't work right. So they had to go back in there and refilm it again. And all this stuff was already on the floor. And he said he probably had like 5 inches of this gelled, solid candy stuff on the bottom of his shoes. He said he wished he would have kept them. I would love to have seen them. And he said it was just miserable. And it sounded miserable. And he also talked about how he made Freddy Puppet Baby on here too.
Yeah, David Miller, who did the makeup effects for Freddy in the original Nightmare on Elm Street, came back to do the makeup effects for this one. And this is where, like I said in the review, was I guess what he tried to do was make it look like Kevin Yeager's and his kind of put together, but it really looks like this is where Freddy started to look like a cartoon.
Up next is another 2-second clip, and it's called Hopkins Directs. And is that what it is? Yeah. Hopkins Directs, and it's basically showing the director directing, and it's literally like 2 seconds long. It's completely pointless.
But it does show a behind the scenes of him directing Robert Englund on set. And it's a quick clip of him telling Robert Englund with the whole thing in the scene with the stairs, and where it's a mismatch of all the places they've been, the diner, the church, the boiler room, everything.
All right, so up next is another thing called a slight miscalculation, and again, it's about 3 or 4 seconds long, and they talk about how all the fans wanted to see more kills in this movie and less babies.
So another extra on here is called Take the Stairs. And basically this is the director, Stephen Hopkins, sitting there discussing his vision or his concept on the whole part with the stairs, and having Freddy, try to swipe at the little boy and catch the boy, and what the whole, and it was him trying to sell to New Line Cinema this idea of putting all those elements together in this scene that lasts about 10 seconds in the whole film, of putting the stairs there and putting the boiler room into it, and the diner and all that, and having the actors running up and down the stairs. That's literally all it is.
And this time we don't just get one, we get 2 music videos, one by the Fat Boys and the other one by Houdini.
Anyway, I gotta swing it. Swing it.
I can say this for this video, it's pure 80s. You watch this thing, it looks pure 80s. I mean, this is about as 80s gets right here. It's pure 80s.
Yeah, it was entertaining. I like, it's in it, but again, I take it for what it is, and it was something to promote the film. And I don't know why they didn't do a video to Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter, which ended up being the worst song, or according to everybody else, the worst song from the worst soundtrack of that year by Bruce Dickinson. I don't understand.
Okay, so then we had the trailer, and that's about it, right?
Yep, that's about it. So anyway, we got to swing it. We're gonna swing it on over to Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare, which is Nightmare on Elm Street 6.
Yeah, anyway, I gotta swing it.